Chapter 12. Peducci's Majestic Circus. Hoggie and Scooter spent that entire week trying to learn more about Alexander Libri. Between classes, homework, walking the dogs, investigations into the life of the architect, and usual cooking, cleaning, and laundry, Hoggie hardly had any time left for anything else. On Saturday night, however, she had a real and rare treat. That night she and Scooter went to Peducci's. True to his word, Prospero had arranged for them to have 2 seats in the front row of his new show. Hoggie had been to Peducci's Majestic Circus twice before, and had liked it very much on both occasions. Very soon, however, she realized that whatever she had seen until that night did not even begin to compare to the circus's new show, the Venetian Carnival. It was amazing. The ingenious mechanism of which Prospero had told him, indeed transformed the circus's arena into an enormous pool; and the beautiful stage sets, the palaces of Venetian doges, and the sunlit canals, seemed so real, that for 2 hours Hoggie felt as if she had actually been transported into the famous city on water. She was so mesmerized by Venice's splendour, she didn't even want to leave her seat during the intermission. Scooter went to the foyer to buy them ice cream. When he came back holding 2 vanilla cones, he looked troubled. "Is everything all right?" Hoggie asked. In reply, Scooter whispered, "I think I am being followed." "What?" Hoggie looked around. "By who?" "Shh!" Scooter whispered, "Don't let him know we've spotted him." He sat down, and, still in a whisper, explained, "See that guy behind me? Bony face, long nose, and a mouth that looks as if it had been carved with a knife? That's him." With the corner of her eye, Hoggie studied the tall, gaunt figure of a man in a dark coat, seated a few seats over. The man was eating a chocolate ice cream while reading the show's programme. "I think you're mistaken, Scooter," she said in the end, "although he does look like he's related to the Addams family. What makes you think he's following you?" "He is following me," Scooter insisted. "I saw this man 2 days ago, outside my piano teacher's house, and here he is again." Scooter stole another glance at the gaunt man. "You're being paranoid," Hoggie said. Indeed, in spite of his ghoulish looks, the man in a dark coat seemed neither dangerous nor mean. "It's quite possible for you to run into the same person twice in a week." "But he followed me just now to the bathroom. Only he did not use the bathroom. He just walked along the stalls and back, and then pretended to be washing up. It was as if he wanted to make sure that I was there." Hoggie considered this for a moment. "That is strange," she admitted. "Still, there can be a perfectly innocent explanation for all this. Maybe he is one of those people who can't use the bathroom when someone else is in it." Just then, the gaunt man's cell phone buzzed. He answered it, and for a few seconds silently listened to the person on the other end of the line. Then, just as silently, he hung up, picked up his umbrella, and left. "See," Hoggie said, "he's not even staying for the second part." With the man gone, Scooter calmed down a little. Just then the lights went dim, the music played, and the second half of the show started. After the show, Hoggie and Scooter slipped backstage to see Prospero. "So, what did you think of the show?" he asked. "It was wonderful. I am glad you enjoyed it. By the way, I asked Paolo Peducci if he knew Alexander Libri." "And did he?" "He did. It's a very interesting story, too." Prospero motioned the children to step out of the way of the stage hands, who were scuttling here and there in the after-show bustle, and then continued. "It turns out Giovanni Peducci was a very close friend of Antonio Libri, Alexander Libri's father. They were from the same town in Italy. Antonio Libri designed the stage for our circus." "Oh, right," Scooter remembered. "He was an engineer." "While Antonio was working on the stage, he would come to Barducci's nearly every day," Prospero continued. "Sometimes his son, who was about your age then, would come with him. Alexander befriended a Russian acrobat and his daughter Sophie, who were working at Barducci's. But then something bad happened. Back then, the British government could throw out of the country any immigrant they did not like, and they did not like Sophie's father, because he was a socialist. And so, one night, the police came to the circus right in the middle of a show, grabbed both Sophie and her father, and put them on a ship that was about to sail to Russia, the Rosamunda." "So they never saw each other again?" Scooter asked. Prospero winked at the children. "As a matter of fact, they did. The ship sailed down the river, was just getting out into the open sea, when a powerful hurricane came suddenly from the east." "I didn't know there could be hurricanes around here," Scooter interrupted. "There weren't any until that day, or ever after. What's more, it was a beautiful sunny day, not a single cloud in the sky. Everyone was completely taken by surprise. As the hurricane swept along the coast, it picked up the Rosamunda and carried her back up the river. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped, dropping the ship in the middle of a street in Hampstead. Fortunately, she wasn't flying very high, so no one was hurt." Suddenly, Hoggie remembered the photograph she had found in the library's attic. "The East Ender!" she cried. "That was the name of the hurricane." "That sounds right," Prospero confirmed. "What happened to Sophie and her father?" "Well, the police couldn't send them to Russia just then, because the Rosamunda was a wreck. And soon after, Giovanni Barducci found his acrobat a job with another circus in France, and that was where Sophie and her father went." "That's an amazing story," Hoggie was saying, as she and Scooter were going home that night. "It's crazy, though, how the police could just grab somebody and send them away," Scooter commented. "They still can," Hoggie grunted, thinking about her mother. Scooter was still preoccupied with his earlier encounter with the gaunt man in a black coat, and so Hoggie insisted that night they walk to his house first. "But I can't let you walk home by yourself with that guy skulking around," Scooter protested. "Don't you worry about me," Hoggie assured him. "I'm very good at kicking and biting. Besides," she added, "I really don't think anybody is following you." Hoggie walked Scooter all the way to the gated entrance of his apartment building, and then started for Camden. She did not fear walking alone at night, as she frequently took the dogs for an evening walk. On her way home, she stopped by the library, and for a few minutes studied its massive shape. By then, the city was completely dark. The library's grey walls and black windows blended with the night landscape. The only things that betrayed its otherwise flawless camouflage were the figures of Saint Jerome and his lion, illuminated by the street-lights. The clock atop St. Michael's Church, a few blocks away, struck 11 just then. Hoggie raised the collar of her thin coat and turned to leave, when something caught her eye. Did she imagine it? Or did a gust of wind stir the shadows? For a brief moment it appeared to Hoggie that there was a human figure atop the library. She froze, and for a good minute stared at the roof, but it was as deserted as ever. "I think Scooter's paranoia is rubbing off on me," Hoggie muttered. She stuck her cold hands deeper into the pockets of her coat, and started home. On Monday, Hoggie and Scooter finished their study session earlier than usual, because they wanted to visit Catherine Libri, and give her back her grandfather's papers. Just as the first time, they found her house on Fountain Street warm and welcoming. The young woman ushered them into the living-room, and treated them to tea and sandwiches. "How is your report?" she asked Hoggie. For a moment Hoggie was speechless. She had completely forgotten that they had told Catherine that they were writing a report about the architect for their history class.
"Good,"
she replied at last, blushing slightly.
"And did my grandpa's plans help you at all?"
"Yes, they did,"
Hoggie lied. "Thank you for letting us borrow them."
"My pleasure," Catherine said.
"I'm so glad someone is interested in grandpa's work. Is there anything else I can do for you?"
Using this opportunity, Scooter asked,
"Miss Libri, do you know if your grandfather kept a journal?"
"None that I know of."
"What about letters? Did he write a lot of letters?"
"I'm sure he did," Catherine nodded.
"Back then, people wrote letters a lot more often than they do now. Do any of these letters still exist? That's a difficult question."
She pondered it for a while.
"I have some of his letters to Grandma, but it's just personal matters. Oh, wait!" she exclaimed suddenly. "I believe I have a whole bunch of letters Grandpa received from his old friend from Oxford. Now," she wrinkled her forehead, "if only I could remember where I put them. Help yourself to more tea. I'll be just a minute."
But, in a house as big as and as full of memories as the one belonging to the Libri family, finding anything always took a lot longer than a minute. Meticulously, Catherine went through the contents of the drawers in the living-room, the file cabinets and the writing-desk in her grandfather's study, and even through the broom-closet under the staircase. But the letters weren't in any one of those places.
Catherine said at the end of her search. "I'm sure I've seen them somewhere, and not too long ago. The library, perhaps? I hope she didn't put those letters between the pages of a book, like some people do,"
Scooter whispered to Hoggie as they followed the architect's granddaughter to the library, and watched her stop in the middle of the room, a perplexed look on her face.
"Or that she at least remembers the name of the book. Otherwise we'll be here all night."
Hoggie, feeling increasingly guilty about making her hostess dig through the years of dust and cobwebs in pursuit of something that might not even be important, was just about to ask the woman not to bother, when Catherine exclaimed,
"Oh, but of course! How could I forget?"
She crossed the room to the farthermost corner, where the statue of Saint Jerome was standing. Then, with a movement so quick and subtle that Hoggie and Scooter didn't even see how exactly she did it, the woman produced a bunch of letters out of thin air.
"Ta-da!"
she said, quite pleased with the effect her magic had on her guests.
"How did you do it?"
Scooter whispered. Catherine motioned the children to come closer.
"The statue of Saint Jerome. It has a secret compartment," she explained.
She passed her hand over the lion's head. Suddenly, something clicked inside the statue, and the animal's lower jaw dropped open.
"It's hollow,"
Catherine explained further, sticking her hand inside the lion's mouth.
"Grandfather meant it as a sort of safe. I discovered it when I was a little girl."
She then showed Hoggie and Scooter how to open the secret compartment.
"You just scratch the lion behind the right ear, like so. Here, you try it, Scooter."
His hands trembling with excitement, Scooter did as Catherine had taught them. The lion's mouth opened again, revealing a deep cavity inside the statue.
"Anyway," Catherine said, "here are the letters. I hope they'll help."
Without giving the letters another look, Hoggie put them in her backpack. 15 minutes ago, she would have been thrilled to lay her hands on this piece of information. Right now, however, she was more preoccupied with something else. Something that occurred to her the moment she learned Saint Jerome's little secret. Something so remarkable and full of possibilities, she could barely wait to share it with Scooter. The children once again thanked Catherine for her help, and were on their way. As soon as the house's stained-glass door closed behind them, Scooter turned to Hoggie.
"Hoggie, are you thinking what I'm thinking?"
he whispered, his face red with excitement.
"I don't know what you're thinking,"
Hoggie replied, just as excited.
"But I am thinking that if there is a secret compartment in the small statue, maybe there is a secret compartment in the big statue, the one on the library's roof."
Scooter gasped.
"That's exactly what I was thinking."
The friends giggled nervously.
"I wonder what Alexander Libri hid in the big statue."
"Probably something very important. Maybe even the original plans of the library." The following day, as soon as the classes ended, the children ran to the city library. By the now familiar route, they reached the library's top floor, climbed the iron ladder in the back stairwell, and sneaked into the attic. The door leading to the roof was locked with a padlock. Hoggie unlocked it in a matter of seconds, and pushed open the door. The sun was at its highest, and though weakened by the long journey to earth, its rays were absolutely blinding. A flock of pigeons, disturbed by the children's intrusion, took off the roof and circled the city block. The friends walked around the dome to the roof's eastern edge, whereupon stood the enormous figures of Saint Jerome and his pet lion. Up close the bronze lion was nearly the size of an elephant, and Hoggie realized just then that scratching its ear was not going to be easy. For one thing, she could not even reach the ear. Luckily, from all the dog-walking, Hoggie had very strong arms and shoulders. She used the folds of Saint Jerome's robe to climb up onto the lion's back. She was now right above the sidewalk, people beneath her scurrying about like a busy ant colony. Hoggie imagined how much it would hurt if she lost her grip and fell down, and, for a moment, she felt dizzy.
"Now, where is that secret compartment?"
she said to distract herself from scary thoughts. She pressed her belly against the lion's back, and crawled a little closer to the giant's right ear. At first, it looked like an ordinary ear, a tad dusty perhaps, but upon a closer look, Hoggie saw that alongside it, hidden in the lion's mane, was a deep groove.
"Aha!"
Hoggie said triumphantly, and pulled the ear. The ear moved along the groove, and Hoggie heard a scratching, rusty sound.
"Did that do anything?"
Hoggie asked. "It did! It did!" Scooter exclaimed, motioning his friend to climb down. When Hoggie climbed down from the lion's back, she saw that although the beast's mouth was still tightly shut, a narrow gap had opened in the folds of Saint Jerome's robe, on the statue's right side. The children squatted by the gap, and Scooter stuck his hand in it.
"Anything?"
Hoggie asked. "Nothing." Hoggie took out her flashlight, and illuminated the inside of the statue.
"There is a step-ladder in here,"
she said in astonishment.
"Hello!"
she yelled into the gap. "Hello!" Her voice echoed somewhere in the distance.
"I don't think it's a compartment, Scooter,"
Hoggie declared.
"It's an entrance to somewhere."
"Where?"
"Let's find out."
Hoggie stepped into the gap. The ladder inside Saint Jerome spiraled down a dozen meters. At the bottom of the ladder was a corridor that led deeper inside the library. The corridor had a strange shape. Sometimes it would become so narrow the children could barely squeeze through it, and sometimes it would widen to a good 2 meters. Its ceiling also varied in height from 6 meters to a mere crawl space. In the end, the corridor brought the children to a spacious room. The room was lit, if only dimly, with the thin beams of light that seeped through the tiny round windows at the top of the walls. Scooter stood on his tiptoes and peeked through one of the windows.
"Hoggie!"
he said excitedly.
"We're on the 4½ floor."
He stepped back and looked around. Now that his eyes became used to the room's twilight, he began to notice that all around them were ceiling-high bookshelves loaded with books.
"Oh, Hoggie!"
he whispered, mesmerized.
"This is it. The secret room. We've found it."
Hoggie walked through the door, not the one through which they had come, but the one on the opposite side of the room. The door took her to another room, slightly smaller, but with higher ceilings. This room also was filled with books, and leading away from it was yet another door to yet another room, and from there to another, and another, and another, and all of them were full of bookcases laden with books.
"No, Scooter!"
Hoggie said, her voice suddenly hoarse from such an incredible discovery.
"We haven't just found a secret room. We've found an entire secret library."